Hello and welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Steve Smith, and today it is Thursday. And you know what Thursday means? It means this is a ripper of a new episode, including Australian Turf Analysis Keeper of the Greens. This is episode number 39. Now, just before we get stuck into Keeper of the Greens, I want to just bring your attention to partners of the podcast. Keeper of the Greens is brought to you by Australian Turf Analysis. And as a greenkeeper, as a golf course superintendent, I know that when it comes to agronomy, our industry has always been using tools at the forefront of science and technology. And the latest in that technology comes to you from Australian Turf Analysis and their multispectral lens drone. Now, I will say this, I'm just going to jump this in the middle. I was just down and I went and saw Australian Turf Analysis and John League getting out to Camden Golf Club in Sydney Southwest, and I got to see in detail how they do one of these surveys, and it is really sensational stuff. There were golfers out on golf course playing and enjoying the day. It was a wonderful day. Superintendent Justin and his team were out there doing all their work as usual. And yet here we are. John's out there from Australian Turf Analysis just doing a survey. Didn't bother anyone. Just got on with the job. It's so quick and so easy. So to go and see it happening was really, really insightful, and just so good to see how pinpoint accurate this stuff is. It really is on the cutting edge of technology. Now, with a drone flight over your course, Australian Turf Analysis can show you what is happening all before it's visible to the trained eye of a greenkeeper. The multispectral lens, along with intelligent software, measures turf stress and correlates the data for you in a very easy-to-read graphic map, along with a few other formats that are available. Now, you might think that some of the latest scientific tools like this are a bit pricey, but I can assure you that once you get a quote to survey your course, you will be searching for reasons why you shouldn't use this technology to help maintain your golf course. It really is that affordable, and that's why you need to go and get in touch with John so he can show you just what it is and how easy it is to access this sort of technology. John League at Australian Turf Analysis is your certified and fully insured drone pilot to make sure all those paperwork bases are covered so you don't have to worry no matter where you are in Australia. Now for the good part, guys, for any new first-time customers of Australian Turf Analysis, yes, they are offering a 10% discount on your first service if you mention the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. So head on over to www.australianturfanalysis.com to get in touch with John for a quote for your golf course. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It really is that affordable, and it really is that helpful to help you as a greenkeeper and as a superintendent to do your job better and maintain your course better. So get over there now and get in touch with John. Ladies and gentlemen, we make our way headfirst into the year 2022, where I get to bring you, this is the first episode, the first segment of Keeper of the Greens for the year 2022, and I'm really excited by who I have on the end of the line. And I'm not gonna talk too much and make it too long. I'm just gonna get straight into it. And welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast for Keeper of the Greens. Welcome to Superintendent Logan Booby from Parks Golf Club in the central western New South Wales. G'day, Logan.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having us on the podcast, mate.
Mate, I'm so glad you wanted to come on and be part of the podcast. I'm really excited about this because, as you know, and I'm sure anyone who's listening knows, I have a good background with the central western New South Wales, and I'm a big fan of the area. Lots of great golf to be had out in that part of the world. And for me, this is a little bit interesting because we're going to talk about your background, and we're going to talk a lot about parks as well. And I think this is going to surprise a few people. And this is one of the stories that I'm really excited to bring to you. It's quite different. So everyone listening, I hope you're going to enjoy this one. Logan, mate, thanks again for coming on. And we're just going to jump straight into Steve's Super 7 questions. You ready to roll?
Yeah, mate, no worries. Let's go.
Oh, all right, let's go. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise, mate, yeah.
Very good. Now, course appearance questions. Now, I'm with your background, and people are going to learn this out in a minute, but I already know a little bit. We're going to start off and we'll go course appearance, stripes or no stripes on fairways. And your background might have a bit of a bearing on this.
Yeah, mate. Stripes, I reckon. Like, I don't mind. If you're not striping them up, if you have nice, clean fairways, but just find striping up fairways when there's a few blemishes to distract the eye a bit. So
Yes, and that is what they are good for sometimes. Very, very well said, because I used to do similar things when there's a few things out there you weren't quite sure, and if you striped them, it would certainly take your eye away from some of those things if that's what you're looking to do as well. So, mate, good answer. Now, lean or lush?
Lush, mate, yeah.
Got to love it. As a greenkeeper, it is a very common answer. We do get it. Now, favourite green surface? I'm curious about this one myself. Bent grass, couch grass, or something else, and you have to name it if it is.
No, definitely be bent grass, mate. So all I've really dealt with. So,
okay,
mate, you can't go past it really.
It's a beautiful surface, mate. It is. Number 5. Where do you prefer to maintain a golf course? Cool climate or warm climate?
Probably warmer climate, mate. Yeah, you spend a couple of winters in Canberra, we're dealing with that frost, and I'd rather be wearing shorts through most of winter. So.
Very good, mate. Very good to hear. Now, favourite bunker style: St Andrews, Kingston Heath, or Augusta National? What are your thoughts on this one?
Probably St Andrews, mate. Yeah, those deep bunkers.
They are very special, very unique. But strangely enough, I actually thought we'd get more people saying St Andrews. I'm very very interested by your answer. That's great. Yeah. And the final one: if you could visit one golf course anywhere on the planet tomorrow, which one would it be?
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, I wouldn't miss that opportunity.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. There are a few. I've got to be honest, I don't even know which one I picked, but lots of people do say Augusta, and I can totally understand why. A very good choice, mate. So, look, thanks for doing those. The 7 questions and lots of comparisons that people will be thinking of in their heads through supers that we've interviewed, and certainly ones that are soon to come as well. Mate, now, let's get stuck into this story. I know a little bit, and I'm intrigued to learn a whole lot more talking to you right now. And let's start at the beginning for you, mate. Let's talk about how you got into greenkeeping. You're obviously out at parks in the central western New South Wales, but there's an interesting start to your story, and there's a bit of family in your story as well, and in greenkeeping. So, mate, let's kick it off. Tell us how you got into greenkeeping. Where did it begin for you, mate?
Yeah, so basically, I was at uni in Bathurst. Then during the summer holidays, summer casual job came up on the council. So, I started with that. I was just looking after the cemetery for a while, and I thought, I'll tell you what, this isn't too bad, mowing. I was doing a lot of mowing, irrigation, all that. And that when summer came to an end, apprenticeship job came up on the councils, looking after the sports fields, cricket wickets. So I jumped straight in. So, and I haven't looked back since.
So you're born and bred from Bathurst?
Yep.
So, and to get that start, so just a little bit, I suppose, with councils, because some people may or may not know that obviously out the Central West, a lot of councils look after nearly all of the sporting arenas out in the Central West. And we know of, I think it's Glen Willow out at Mudgee, and there's the Bathurst. And these are football stadiums and the like that have held NRL matches and the like. And there's cricket wickets you talk about, which is very popular out in the Central West, as well as along the coast of the major cities. And council do invest a lot of money in their maintenance, don't they? They get some really good surfaces happening out there.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like once, during my apprenticeship, we had, the league started, the NRL started playing out of Carrington, a couple more games a year. So a lot more money got thrown into that.
And that's Carrington's the one at the football field at Bathurst, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the main league ground there, yep.
So there's a lot of investment there. And so what sort of, I'm a bit curious, I mean, how many sorts of people do they have running around looking after turf in a council?
Well, when I was there, that was started off with just a greenkeeper and an apprentice. And then there's labourers as well that do a lot of the tractor mowing and stuff like that. But, pretty much 2 greenkeepers do the wickets. And that's line marking, just little mowing around the area, and then they hired another greenkeeper, and now I think they have about 4 or 5 down there now as it's growing bigger.
Wow.
So it's pretty. You're looking after a lot of hectares. Yeah, so that's all the soccer fields, league fields, touch fields. Yeah, pretty much everything. So.
And there's a lot of those. I don't know if they play soccer at Raglan, I think it is, on the way into Bathurst as well.
Yeah,
Along the riverbanks there's a stack of sports fields. And you guys, obviously being at the council, look after all of that in some way, shape or form. There's a lot of, and it's probably a little bit higher in terms of maintenance because you're always cutting every square inch more or less of all of those sporting fields are played on. It's not like a golf course where you have rough areas where there's less traffic and less. You can give areas a bit of a rest from maintenance from time to time. They're nearly all mown, aren't they?
yeah.
There's a lot of cutting.
Yeah, a lot of red tape too. So,
mate. So tell us a bit about how long you were at Bathurst Council for. Did you finish your time as an apprentice greenkeeper there?
Yep. So once I finished my trade there, then I moved down to Canberra. So took a job there contracting for a company down there looking after St Edmund High School there, college, and also part time at Capital Golf Course down there.
Very good.
Yeah, so I was down there worked with them for a couple of months, and then I got a job at Manuka Oval. So,
wow. Yeah. So you've had a bit of a taste of golf in Capital, and I've played there once many years ago. I do remember it.
It's not a bad little public course. So
yeah, public access for all, and it's not huge by space or anything, but that's good. So you got a bit of a touch there in golf, and then you got, what was it, a full-time gig then at Manuka?
As the assistant curator to Brad Van Dam.
Yeah, right. And so we're talking Manuka Oval, which is the main stadium for AFL, and is it cricket as well in Canberra?
Cricket and AFL at Manuka.
So what sort of things are involved in, I mean, I watch a bit of AFL. The wife's an AFL nut. I'm starting to learn it. I'm a big NRL person myself. But what sort of things do you have to maintain sort of differently as the seasons change over? Because you've got the square for cricket in the middle of a field. And then in wintertime, you're playing AFL. Like, is it that different an area in that square? Is it quite firm for cricket? And then, for AFL, how does that work?
Yeah, so the majority of your winter is just trying to save as much of the cricket wicket as you can. Like you still got to cover the wicket during winter. You got to control the moisture because you obviously can't have it rock hard for AFL players.
There'd be serious injuries, I imagine, if you get that.
Yeah, there's a lot of guidelines to that with like the density of the soil and also the slipperiness of it. So that's always something that you have to have in the back of your mind. And then, pretty much then all spring is just trying to get that, or early spring is trying to get that wicket to full cover pretty much as soon as you can. If makes it a lot easier having drop-ins where you can just pop them in and out. But Manuka wasn't drop-ins. There's a lot of talk about it for a while, but no, it's good. I really enjoyed my time there. So, and I got to see a full reconstruction of the oval.
Wow.
Yeah, what year is that? Like 2013, I think it was, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting to see. So they got a whole new wicket. Yeah, they dug down, what was it, 0.5 metre, I think they took out over 2 hectares. So,
wow, that's a lot of.
Yeah, it was quite a big job. So.
And of course, like I say, we know that they hold the odd AFL game there, the odd cricket match, the Big Bash or whatever it might be. So it's a highly regarded stadium in Canberra, that's for sure. And so, what was it, a couple of years there in Canberra, and then where did your career take you after that?
So I think it was about 5 years at Manuka.
Yep.
And then a job at the SCG came up.
Now that's a step.
Brad was he was actually the first one to let me know about it because he knew how much I wanted to end up there. And I applied for the job under Tom Parker, and I got it. So
you're working and operating under the legendary Tom Parker, who we know is a curator at the SCG for many years.
Yep. And
in greenkeeping circles, very highly regarded. Even they used to talk about, I remember the Tony Greggs of the world. The late Tony Gregg would often talk about, Tom Parker and talk about the pitch. And, did you learn a lot working at a place like the SCG more so than what you'd learnt sort of in the early stages of your greenkeeping career and under people like Tom?
Definitely, yeah. Like the step up from attention to detail, like just little things that generally, well, especially at Bathurst, I wouldn't even, think of it as an issue or worry about. And, you're out there with a little brush sweeping off like any bits of sand that get on the clay wicket, and, you're sprigging bits of cooch all through the middle of the wicket, and, just little things like that, you're in the public eye. And everything you do is scrutinised, especially when it has to do with the performance of the wickets themselves.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was great. Like Brad Van Dam was under Tommy for years as well, so a lot of lucky. I was lucky in that aspect where the method of how I was making wickets didn't change much moving to the SCG from Monaco. Very similar techniques. Obviously, there's a little bit. It's just like a recipe, and everyone has their own little recipe of how to make a wicket, and it just, little changes and different things. But yeah, the basis was there. Very similar soil. I know what's it called now? The very famous clay soil. Now it's slipped my mind at the moment.
I can't help you because I don't know it, mate.
But anyway, yeah, that very dark soil. So. But yeah, no, it was great.
They're unique characteristics, and we talk a lot about those site characteristics in golf and golf courses, and we'll get to and we'll come to parks soon. But cricket really does have. Is it the bulleye? I can't remember.
It was, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
bulleye.
There you go. So I can help, as it turns out. The bulleye soils that the SCG is known for is unique to the SCG, and as cricketers, and we watch it on television. I'm a huge cricket fan, as we watch them travel around through the different stadiums in different states around the country, that they have different characteristics for where they source their wicket soil from in that local area, and golf courses are no different. So I suppose you're in the background, you haven't done a lot into golf yet, but you're taking these characteristics of what makes a turf surface, and in time you'll no doubt we'll talk about those things as well. But you're learning that in the background, and it's pretty. We scrutinise as viewers, as spectators, and supporters of the Australian team, certainly, and all the other forms of cricket now. We scrutinise the surfaces like you talked about. But we can't see you. We don't get to go out there. It's not like a golf course where we're playing during the week and we see you out there doing the maintenance or whatever it might be. You guys are being scrutinised without anyone knowing that you're doing anything. And there's lots of really weird hours of operation too, isn't there, for maintenance in a cricket wicket as well?
Yeah, there's not many weekends. It's because you obviously got all the main games, especially when the football stadium as well. You'd alternate. You'd do shifts up there and that, and so you'd rarely get weekends off. But very strange shift hours and that too. You're working till 2 a.m. kind of thing, and then next morning you'll be in at 10 o'clock. And it's just
very, very unusual indeed. But certainly that level of detail, I'm sure, would have set you up well as we come to furthering your career. So how long were you I'm curious, how long were you at the SCG performing your magic under the direction of Tom as well and part of the team? How long were you there for?
Was about two and a bit years. So I did the 2018 Ashes wicket, and after that summer, I decided I'd make the push into golf courses.
So we take the big leap officially out of cricket.
Yep.
And how did that come about, mate? Where did you go, and how did that come about?
In all honesty, I'm a country boy, and living in the city, just got to me a bit. So
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that, mate. I can tell you now, I come from the mountains and I'm living in the city, and as much as I love a lot of things, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and I just thought, it's that time, I was at that age where I was like, well, if I'm going to make anything in the golfing side of greenkeeping, then now's the time to do it. While I don't have a family or anything, so I can jump around a bit. And that's when I decided to move out to Mudgee, because I've always liked Mudgee. I've always played rugby there. I enjoy wine, so that's a bonus.
That's always a prerequisite if you're going to end up in a wine region.
That's it. So yeah, that was good. I got a 2IC job under Jason Sires there, and that was pretty much my introduction, my fully introduction into looking after golf courses.
So you've stepped right out back to kind of your homeland, if you like, being back at the Central West, in an environment I think you probably know a little bit more about. Yep. And look, Mudgee, I know Jason Size personally. I've known him for nearly my whole greenkeeping career from when I was an apprentice. He was the assistant super at my golf course at Wentworth Falls when I was an apprentice. Yeah, and right. So Size and I know each other have known each other for a long time, and I think through you working at Mudgee as well, I got to know you with the annual Greenkeepers Golf Day from the Central West of New South Wales that I help organise too. You've been to that. Yep. So we sort of got to know each other a little bit through there, and yeah, like Mudgee it's a great course. It's almost the epitome of a course in the Central West. Nice and long, gum tree sort of lined fairways as well, and really enjoyable course to play with, great surfaces. So you've gone out as assistant, stepping into golf. What sort of a full-time change was that, and were there things that you had to really learn that were quite different? Because I don't know, some people might think that there's not much of a difference. You know, you're dealing with grass on an oval, you're dealing with grass on a golf course. What sort of things did you find that were quite different?
Definitely, taking that broad acreage on, like at a sports field, you're dealing, like at AFL field, you're dealing with 2 hectares, of grass, and then you're going from that to, like 40 hectares, fence to fence, and it was and it's a lot to do. I noticed that the attention you have to pay every time you have to mow the greens, you're looking for any little sign, whereas with, longer grass stuff, you can nearly predict when you're going to get disease coming, whereas, something little will come up on the green, and next couple of days it's again. So it's probably one of the bigger issues or things I had to get used to.
And what was it like, I suppose as well, thinking about the landscape and the local environment, because there's, I think is there a creek line that runs through Mudgee as well, and you've got trees, you've got gardens, you've got clubhouse, you've got, the amenity areas around a lot of the regional golf courses that they usually have, because they've got so much space. Yep. These are very different things you've got to kind of consider as well during the year.
Yeah, that's it, and you're probably dealing more with people interaction, on golf courses, like on an enclosed sports field, you barely see anyone, and then you're dealing with golfers day in, day out. It makes things very interesting dealing with some of the golfers sometimes. But yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion, and I won't finish the rest of that saying.
That's it.
So how long were you there as part of the team? What sort of team size did Jason have out at Mudgee? How does they function of what you were learning on golf?
So when I was there, they had so it was 4 staff, Jason, myself. We had a labourer and then an apprentice, and for a little. But now I think the labourer retired, so I think they're down to 3 staff again now. But yeah, it was an interest. Like it was a good team, always a good team. Everyone had their specific jobs, like when you have small teams like that, you generally work out what people are best at and what they enjoy doing, so you can work that in.
Very much so. Mate, I'm curious, how long were you as assistant at Mudgee before I suppose now the timeline's getting shorter, we're learning you're probably getting closer to a Parks. How did things pan out for that?
So I was there for about 2.5 years. There was a few jobs that came up. Jason was he was very positive with me trying to find a super job. He was quite happy when I told him that I was going to go for the Parks job. There's a few jobs that came up that he said maybe you should go for, but I kind of held off. But and then I saw the job come up, and I went for it. Told Sizey about it, and he was all for it. So,
and I know Jason, like I said, I know him well, and he would have supported you to no end to be able to look after a golf course yourself under the role of superintendent. And, having someone like that at your back, no different to having someone like Tom Parker behind you as well, that sort of level of support really gives you the confidence to go out and apply for those jobs as well.
Yeah, that's it. It makes it a lot easier if you're not doing things behind, people's backs. You can be out open, and it's good just to have that support.
100%. And so what year did you kick off as superintendent at Parks Golf Club?
So that was this year in June.
Well, hang
July,
on.
Sorry, June.
Hang on. We're in 2022.
Oh,
Come on, we've crossed the line here.
Is that where we are? Might have to update the calendar.
We've already taken the next step. So in 2020, so we're talking what, about 7 months ago.
Yep.
I love asking this question, and we're going to now launch into a lot of detail about Parks and your position and your role there. What did it feel like when? A couple of questions. What did it feel like when you were told that you were successful at being, and they were going to offer you the role at superintendent? And then what did it feel like day one walking in to the golf club and working for your first day?
So look, obviously I was pretty excited when they told me that I'd got the job, and then it probably kicked in straight away that I had started planning my next movements. Like I came down to go over a few to check out the shed, machinery and all that. When I came down, had a good look at the greens when I came down for the interview, that is, and I had already started making a list in my head. They hadn't had a greenkeeper here for a few years, so a couple of the greens, there was just little things that were kind of neglected for a while.
So they were when they didn't have a greenkeeper for a few years. So what the club had,
Yes.
they were using volunteers, their committee members, the like. Is that sort of what we're assuming?
Yeah. So there was a transition period where they had a greenkeeper and a mechanic, and then the greenkeeper left, and the mechanic and volunteers kind of kept the course going for a couple of years.
Right. Okay.
And then my first day here, all I wanted to do was just to get hooked in, pretty much. Had already planned all these things I wanted to do. Trying to get my first goal, was trying to get the greens to a good state. They were kind of a little bit neglected, so that was pretty much my first goal. Still is kind of my goal. There's still I'm still trying to work on them at the moment. We're getting a good growing period this year, so when everything seemed to dry out, we seem to be getting a little bit of rain just to top it up. So.
Well, mate, and there's a few things here that I want to dive into with you. And first of all, I'm going to start at the top of one of my most important questions is, and for everyone listening, this is the part that I think you'll probably struggle to get your head around. So, Logan, you've just mentioned you come from Mudgee with Jason Size as superintendent, team of 4 or thereabouts. Now you've taken on the role as superintendent at Parks Golf Club, where the previous greenkeeper had left the club and they were looking after volunteers. You're the superintendent. You are the only greenkeeper working and looking after the golf course, aren't you?
Yep, that's it. And we have one casual paid employee. So it's me and another bloke.
So it's an 18-hole golf. I'm just trying to get my head around the amount of work that I'm trying to get my head around so people can also put into perspective a lot of the work that's involved. It's a full size, as we would normally know, an 18-hole golf course. So it's a large space. Uh-huh. It's got a club attached. You have competitions on weekends, no doubt, and maybe the odd one or so during the week.
Yep.
And you've got 18 greens. This is not a 9-hole course with 2 sets of tees. You've got 18 greens. You've got 18 surrounds. You've got fairways to suit. What's the par there?
So at the moment, it's par 71. I say at the moment because the recon it to par 72, so we can get more comps.
So okay, so like I said, this isn't a small golf course. This is par 71, so it's reasonably long. That means you've got a bit of length about you because the standards that we all know are usually around 70 for a lot of sort of regional suburban golf courses. So this is a large track with you and a little bit of help, and no doubt there's some volunteer help as well. I'm not discounting or discrediting that in the slightest. But in terms of professional, mate, do you go home at all? Do you sleep? Have you got a bed in the shed? Is there a shower and a bathroom? I'm not sure if you've got a big screen TV. Do you have time for rest?
I've managed to convince my missus that if we go for a walk in the afternoon, I'm allowed to check the greens. So that's how I get her on board.
Mate,
yeah.
that is an astonishing workload. And you obviously knew that was the case when you applied for the job, that the buck kind of stopped with you more or less. You had a little bit of help, but it was literally all on you, because you've come from Mudgee, and I know what I'm thinking of when I had my team at Katoomba, and I know a lot of the courses that I'm fortunate to go and see. We see teams of 6, you see teams of 10, you see the bigger courses, you get teams of 16, 18, that might be looking after one course. Sometimes they've got more than that looking after 2+. You're one person, one and a bit, with some volunteer help, looking after 18 holes in the central west of New South Wales, where you don't get a metre of rain every year. So there's no doubt plenty of, I assume there's lots of hand watering on top of your mowing. Have you managed to reprint yourself in a 3D printing world? Is there more? I'm struggling to know how much work you've got to do, because that seems like an enormous, I won't say burden, that's not the right word. Challenge is probably the word I'm looking for. And how do you revel in that? Like, that's kind of seems, John, this is your first appointment as super. Welcome to first grade.
It's it's definitely a challenge. I've worked out roughly that so I have someone to mow all the rough, so that's fine. I have
that's good.
Someone to mow the tees.
Okay.
Fine. Someone to change holes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then I have people to do bins and sand.
Okay, so your volunteer help really is, and I assume this is a volunteer help.
Yep.
From the club. The club's really supportive, and they're quite active in how they assist you as a superintendent to maintain the course. And again, when I talk about courses in the Central West, having or regional in general, having that active membership and that active volunteer base to look after a course is crucial when it comes to a full-size golf course like Parks, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And, just over the holidays as well, a few people travel away, so it was a bit hard then to get people in. But without them, I wouldn't be able to run it. There's no way. At the moment, there's probably about 10 hours a week that I'm spent not on the mower. Yeah. And that's, that's mechanical work, irrigation work, all that I have to cram in. Any little top dressing in that 10 hours. So
that's
otherwise, just trying to find that balance too. You still got to go home at the end of the day. So,
and you have to keep your sanity, and because the relentless pressure. It's as a superintendent, it's there. I had it. I know I struggled in my early days at Katoomba, because you kind of just throw yourself headlong in, and you do forget, like you just mentioned, you got to remember that you got to kind of look after yourself outside work, because you can really overburden yourself with it, and it can come and be too much.
Yeah, that's it.
More often than not, if you're not thinking about that and looking after yourself as well. So it's good to hear that you've got that active support. And I say active because it's not the easiest thing to get from some clubs, and no doubt, but good to see. And I find it more common, certainly in regional courses where they do have less money and less resources to pay and look after staff to maintain the course. So, mate, it's a critical thing, but still just you and a little bit of other paid work with your volunteer work. So you've kind of got a pretty good team, and they work. You've got the groove now. You've been there for 7 months. You've got a bit of a groove with everyone.
Yeah, well, yeah. So in teams kind of thing. So, and they've been doing it for years. So when I came in, I was like, well, look, you don't need to change what you're doing, because obviously you're doing the job. So, the boys just do what they know what to do, and it saves me a lot of time. So
absolutely, that's awesome. And I'm going to touch on a little bit of family support, because your brother is a greenkeeper as well.
Yep.
Do you have much? I suppose you probably get on very well with your brother. He's at Torwoods up the central or the mid-north coast of New South Wales, and you're both greenkeepers. Do you guys bounce a few ideas off? Is it mentally supportive to have someone else in the industry that you're that close to?
Yeah, definitely. Like the Christmas conversation is usually, it's usually about fishing and that, but now a lot of it has to do with greenkeeping and, trying different things and that. But No, it's definitely good to have someone bounce ideas off, and like I've helped him come up, and he helps me, and yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
Always good to have that sort of level of support as well in your corner for the time when you are away from the course. So you've got to sort of have that. I find it most important. Did you guys ever actually work together? I'm curious.
No, it would be havoc if we did. It was like when we were young fellas, we worked together just with Dad, but yeah, it ended pretty badly. We usually punch on or something, but
nothing quite like sibling rivalry.
That's it. Maybe in the future something might work out where we'd be working together. So,
well, you never say never, mate. That's the one thing I've learned.
That's it.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your course in a little bit more specific terms. Tell us a bit about your turf surfaces there. What if we come tomorrow, and I'm really disappointed. I've got to be honest, I haven't played Parks. Of all the courses at the Central West, it's kind of this one in the middle that I haven't really. I played everywhere around Parks, but I've never played at Parks. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I can't speak from experience. But what surfaces, if we come to visit, and I hope that more people will on the back of this, put it down to go and play. What do you have on your greens, for example? What are your fairways? What turf surfaces and experience are we going to find when we come to play at Parks?
Yeah, so we have Pencross bent on the greens with minimal power. It's usually pretty dry for power out here. And then pretty much Kaikuya fence to fence. It's pretty much what grows out here. So.
And that's look, the Pencross it's a variety of bent grass for golfers listening that aren't certain what that is. It's just a different variety as such. And because you do get pretty hot in summertime, don't you? I mean, the winter grass isn't, and you don't have as high a rainfall, even though we'll talk about your irrigation in a minute. But it kind of that local environment for that region is enough to keep the winter grass levels down because it just gets too hot too often, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. We had a little bit of came in from another golf course that we had for a chipping green, and trying to keep that because it's it's probably more of a polar mix. Trying to keep that alive has been a bit of a struggle, but
a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So, and Kaikuya grows very well because it is so warm for such a long period of the year. Tell us a little bit about your irrigation system, because I'm sure that's a bit supportive to the Kaikuya rage that you talk about fence to fence. Is that I didn't realise, but you've got a full golf course irrigation. You've got fairways irrigated there as well. And what does that entail? How much of the course is covered of the playing surfaces or the short grass by irrigation? You got a centre run of fairway watering, or how does it work?
No, we have up the wings, so we've got 2 rows. They're just station blocks, and then valving head sprinklers around the greens and approaches, and just blocks for the tees. So, and we have a nearly unlimited supply of effluent water. It's not ideal. It's fairly high in salt, but you can't. Beggars can't be choosy. So.
Mate, I wish I had. I say that often because I've never tried to maintain a course with effluent water. But like you said, it's the fact that you have it more or less readily available to an area. What do you know what the average rainfall is for Parks? Are we talking like around 600 mil? I know Cowra's probably around that mark.
Yeah. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
But the Blue Mountains where I used to work, we're talking 1.2 metres on average of rainfall a year. And once you get out to the Central West Plains, it drops significantly. And Parks is kind of on the edge of where things sort of are still okay for farming and agriculture and of crops more so than stock. And you kind of still get, like, recently you've had rain. It's been a great year for rainfall at the Central West. Tell us what's going on there with your rainfall totals.
Yeah, since I've been here, we've had about 416 mil. So
there you go.
Yeah, and it seems to at times at the moment. So
working perfectly. Yeah. And knowing that you've got that water at your disposal through the irrigation system, you've got your greens covered so you can water when you need to, you've got your fairways covered, which means you can keep things alive when it's extremely difficult. That's pretty good for a course in the Central West, because quite often we see the opposite when things get really, really tough with Mother Nature, don't we?
I think we have nowadays courses, little small town courses are getting better quality and better quality, so especially with COVID, a lot of people have come out here to play golf on weekends, and numbers are through the roof, so it's good.
It makes for a good environment to show off the golf course and people to experience and go, hey, I didn't know Parks had a course. And I know Parks is in years gone by, and I'm talking 50 years ago, I've heard from some old professionals that I've got to know over the years that they talked about playing at Parks, and it's always been a pretty good track to play regional events and the odd pro-am and things, and I'm talking back in the 70s. So I know it's been around for a little while, and it has been well established and for a long time been thought of very well. It's good that it's becoming, I suppose, revisited like a lot of golf courses are. People are searching for a new experience. And I think one of the things that I probably wasn't sure about was water. For me, that's obviously a critical thing. It doesn't mean it needs to be overused all the time, but you've got Forbes about half an hour south of you, which is on the Lachlan River in the Lachlan Valley. And the golf course at Forbes, they pump from the river. Yep. They have a supply of sorts. Parks is up in the sort of the higher ground. There's no major river system that runs through town. So when you told me that you had access to water, I wasn't sure what it would be. And I think effluent is a great secondary use of water that would otherwise just be, discarded, and people think that it's no good. And I think golf courses we find that they're doing a lot more with this secondary water. I think it's a great thing. And certainly for you guys, having that available is awesome.
Yeah, well, that's it. Apparently, I've heard a couple of the old fellas say that the irrigation, they used to get all the excess water from the tomato sauce factory, and apparently they used to, when they used to irrigate, there'd be this film of rotten tomatoes on the course everywhere. So I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. But
now those are some of the old stories that I'm glad we don't have to talk about anymore. But again, secondary use of water. This is a good, regardless of, okay, sure, we don't want to have the stuff, the residue of tomatoes around the golf course, and it is moderately funny to laugh at now. But again, secondary use, thinking outside the box, where can we get water from that someone is discarding of so we can use it again? I think these recycled definitions and the way that golf courses are finding ways, no matter which way they are in the future as we move forward, they're all positive things and a great use of those sort of resources. I think it's brilliant. Sure. Because you're not in the Lachlan Valley, like I just mentioned, you're up a little bit higher. What characteristics, and I'm going to talk about soils a little bit here. You've talked about your grass surfaces, and we know Kikuyu can soften and deaden the ball a little bit and reduce and restrict its run. How does the course play through sort of summer and through winter? Is it different because of the soil characteristics? Does it firm up in summer more so than winter? What are we going to experience when we come out and play Parks in those different times of the year?
Yeah, Parks has very interesting soil. The golf course is on, so the golf club itself on a hill, like the clubhouse, sorry, and it drains like, apparently there's old mine shafts on here and that. So like I was saying to you earlier, like we had 45 mil last night and not a puddle in the fairways.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's awesome, and then it also has the bad side of they do dry out very quickly if left unattended for a little while.
So you can't go home, is what you mean when it's hot?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So when it rains, I'm very happy, and I can sleep finally. And
look, and that's a good thing that often courses that are in the heavier soils, and we'll use Forbes for a bit of an example, that it will probably retain a little bit more water, being in those alluvial soils along the riverbanks and the like, and Cowra is no different, and those sorts of places a little bit. But it can be an effort to install drainage in places. There's a lot of money and expense in those sorts of things. So if you've got a site that's naturally draining well, and you've got a site where you've got a water supply like you do, again, I'm sort of, my eyebrows are raised thinking, this is a great recipe for Parks moving forward. And let's probably talk a little bit about that moving forward. You mentioned that there's a bit of work happening at Forbes, and I know that there's a bypass going around town, and there's some changes happening at, sorry, did I say Forbes? I meant Parks. There's some changes happening to the course, or that are earmarked for the course at Parks. Tell us what's happening in the future potentially.
So the new bypass will be about 50 metres from the fence of the golf course. So we've had Golf by Design come in. They've designed the course to be hitting away from the highway. So that entails, that's 10 new greens. Well, 2 of them are going to be resurfaced, and it's going to be like 13 men's and women's tees that they're going to be putting in as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be a big job. It was meant to go ahead this year, but things were just a bit slow in the legal department. So looking at next spring now. So hopefully everything goes ahead.
So you've got a really impressive challenge ahead of you, and potentially a new lease on life for Parks Golf Course.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, like they brought me in, they brought a new golf pro in. So the club's definitely looking to take that next step forward, the new reconstruction. So yeah, it's going to be exciting times. So
that's super exciting, mate. I know as a superintendent, that's sort of similar to what I walked into, a rough timing with Katoomba development coming. I was at the helm. Lots of new work. It was so good to rub your hands together and go, this is going to be a challenge and a half. And then at the back end, you get to sort of really present all the new stuff. And a lot of your handiwork is on the golf course. It's out there in front of the golfers, and it's a really good feeling, mate. So look, I'm really excited to touch base with you and keep up to date with these new works once they begin. Like I said, a new lease on life for Parks, and I think it's going to be a great rejuvenation for the golf course as well. So new surfaces, new bits and pieces, mate. It bodes well for being exciting.
Yeah, that's it. Just it'd be good to have a fresh start on some of those greens. So I'm looking forward to it.
Unreal, mate. I'm curious. I want you to tell me a little bit of what's so different about the climate at Parks. And you and I chatted privately off the podcast about you've come from the East Coast and you've obviously done some time in Canberra. What is different? It's quite hot. We know it gets quite hot in summer. I know that there's low humidity. What have you found? Were you surprised by those differences? Hot's hot, right? Or is it even hotter in a different sort of slightly different varied way?
Well, that was the thing. When the first few months, it was pretty well raining every day. So that was it took a while for me to even turn on the irrigation here. But yeah, as soon as you get those few 38-degree days, it's just a different heat. That dry heat. It doesn't take long for the bent to turn. And we've limited staff. That's probably my biggest challenge at the moment this summer. Is just trying to get around to all the greens, and there's a few spots that that have slipped through the keeper's gloves, but that seems to be the biggest issue at the moment. It's just how and the wind here too. Like the wind is crazy for being so far west. It just things how quick they dry out.
You mentioned the wind briefly, and we know. I'd like to hope that most people listening to this know of The Dish, the movie, which Parks is well known for, with a giant satellite dish that peers off into the space of the night sky. It's I remember in the movie that they struggled on one of the nights because of the wind. That was one of the things in the movie, and you're right. It is a funny sort of little space out there, just in that gentle raised region where wind really does whip across, doesn't it, when it picks up?
Well, that's the thing, and like on either side of us is just pretty much just wheat fields. So, there's not much stopping it besides our couple of little pines that we have up the sides and that. But it's amazing, how windy it gets here.
Yeah, interesting stuff, and they're all challenges for golf. I'm really intrigued to get out to Parks and have a game, because I'm curious to experience all these, like you said earlier on, the recipe that a greenkeeper has for maintaining a course. Well, this is a recipe for the experience of a golfer when they go and play a golf course. So, I'm curious. I'm really curious, more so than ever was, because I didn't know a lot of these details. So, mate, it's really interesting. I want you to tell us, as golfers, again, we come to visit, is there a part of the golf course that you, and I love bringing this out from a greenkeeper's perspective, from a super's perspective, because you spend, well, in your case, you spend all of your time at the golf course, we know. I'm curious, what's a really nice location on the golf course that you kind of get out there early in the morning when you wake up from bed in the shed and you go and have a look, at the sunrise, or is there a spot out there that you just go, this is so magic to look across the hills? And is there a spot on the course that's just really, really nice?
I probably have two for different circumstances. The tee from the 7th fairway. If the 7th fairway is just a big, long, wide fairway, I've got the stripes going pretty straight there, and you look over to the left and you got the wheat fields, and you look over the right and you've just got the rest of the course. And you're right on top of a hill. That's probably one of my favourite places to be when I'm playing golf.
Yeah, nice.
And then after that, up at the clubhouse on top of the hill with a beer in my hand, looking down the night isn't too bad either. So,
well, that's always a good. As long as at least we know that the clubhouse is in a good spot on top of the hill. So has it got quite? I don't know which direction the clubhouse faces. It's got a nice view across the course.
Yeah. So pretty much, yes. You can see most of the course from up the clubhouse.
Nice. That's awesome. Very good to know, mate. And one that I hope people are thinking of when they do a travel out to parks in the not too distant future. That's what I'm suggesting to everyone to do here, because I think it sounds like a really interesting place to go and play golf and experience. And we know, obviously, this is the good part about parks, is you kind of sort of wedged, even though you're about probably nearly 5 hours west of Sydney. It's kind of in and around. You've got Dubbo to the north, you've got Forbes, like I mentioned, to the south. You've got Orange to the east. There's 2 courses at Orange. All these towns have courses. Wellington's not too far away. Cowra's not too far away. There's a lot of regional golf within sort of a half an hour drive around. If you plant yourself there, you can really have a good holiday golfing experience, can't you?
Yeah, well, that's it. We get a lot of visitors come through that have, either the day before have played Mudgee or Dubbo, and then they go on to Forbes or vice versa, and we get a lot of good comments about the course, especially a lot to do with value for money kind of thing. Obviously, we're running it pretty cheaply, and I think we got it to a really good standard. So, definitely good for people to come out here.
Well, there's no harsher critic than yourself in terms of greenkeeping. That I do know, because you'll pick the faults forever and a day. Even when it's fantastic, you'll still sit there and be saying, And I know that you've got a plan and you've got plenty of work to improve on, but at least you know that it's improving and heading in the right direction still. And that leads me to, mate, I'm curious, what sort of things are you looking forward to? What have you got planned in your program of works over the next 12 months? What's key for you to improve next at Parks?
Well, with the greens at a level where I want them now, I'm turning my attention to getting the tees. A lot of patchy tees, a lot of issues with gum roots and stuff like that we'll have to look at. And also, I'm been working on the 11th hole. It's a par 3. It's the only one it's got our 2 bunkers on it.
You've only got 2 on the course, and they're on the 11th?
Thank God. Yep, only 2.
See, now that's going to save you a lot of work, though, isn't it? A lot of people talk about bunkers, and I don't shy away. I'm a very big bunker fan because I love the challenge, the aesthetic, and what it does to your eye when you walk around a golf course. But there is that flip side and that sort of challenge and argumentative challenge in golf clubs. Have we got the balance right of having the right amount of bunkers / the amount of staff and resources to maintain those bunkers? And it's everyone thinks differently about them in every golf course. So, but for you guys, you've got 2 and they're on that par 3. So that's obviously a cool little hole for me.
Yep. It's my favourite hole. It's got the pine trees on either side of it too, which kind of it soaks up a lot of water. So.
And what are you looking to improve on 11?
Just trying to get the coverage in the fairway pretty much to 100%. We're going to be working on the bunkers. The bunkers drain really well, but we just got to get more sand in there and kind of keep up a regular program to keep them maintained well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just getting that full coverage and getting it popping, because it was pretty barren when I got here. So,
do you have a favourite hole? Is there a hole that on a lot of golf courses have a signature hole? Does Parks have a signature hole that the visitors or that members go, that's our hole? That's what Parks is known for. I don't know. Does it?
No, that's the thing. That's obviously there'd be golfers that would say what's their favourite hole, but there's not really a signature hole like Mudgee has the Donga, which is their 17th, which is
That is a ripper.
Yeah, it's a beautiful hole. And that's where I'm trying to turn the 11th into, at least we have something a bit different to the rest of the course. But look, there's a lot of nice dog legs. The 10th needs a bit of work on the fairway, but because it's got a lot of big gums there. But that's a nice hole up the top. The first is the interesting hole. It's a par 3, a long par 3. You'd be hitting in between 2 gum trees on their approach. So that's a pretty interesting hole.
That's interesting that the first is a par 3. A lot of people don't like that. I hear that from a lot of golfers. They go, par 3 to start off with. I had it at Katoomba. We had a par 3 to start. I think Oberon's got a par 3 to start. You've got a par 3 to start. An interesting way, and you've got goalposts, obviously, to go between.
Yeah, it's always fun when you tee off on the first and you shank one over to the behind the pine. Good start to the day, but...
Mate, it's really interesting to hear about parks. It's been really interesting, mate, as we finish up the conversation, that I've learned so much about parks in chatting to you, which is great. And like I said, I really want to take the opportunity to get out there to experience it. I hope a lot of people do, because it is something that's a little bit different in that you don't have a lot of professional paid greenkeepers looking after the course, but you're delivering something. And this is what I wanted to tell people, is that some regional towns like you guys are delivering the same product, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean for a second that it's not as good. Some places are able to pay their staff and employ staff to do it, and others have to, the members like you have, like at your course, have to chip in and spend time out there on the ground and help to deliver it. And I think knowing that there's so many different versions of how golf is delivered for players to experience in Australia, certainly in regional golf areas, I think it's really interesting. And you probably have a different feeling about it when you go out there experiencing it, to say, there's not an army of 6 to 8 guys here, or even 4 guys, greenkeepers that are paid to be here every day. The members are looking after. Look how good this course looks, because the members are helping out here. There's a small team or an army of members who are just taking guidance and advice, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they're delivering this together with the person they're paying. And I think that's great.
Yeah, that's it. And you get to build up a lot of good relationships with the members too, which is always makes your life a lot easier when you're doing work on the golf club.
Absolutely, mate. Look, Logan, it's been fantastic chatting to you on the Keeper of the Green segment. Really enjoyed having you on, and great to hear your story coming from cricket, coming from sports fields. And I wasn't expecting to hear that. A different transition. And this is the other thing to show people where greenkeeping can take you, what you can experience. And, like you said, preparing the wicket for the Ashes. I mean, that's something you'll never forget. And you've been around to a lot of places, and now you're at parks in another different part of the country. So, mate, it's been great to hear your story. I really appreciate your time coming on board, and I hope people take this as a chance to go out there and experience some more golf in areas that they probably didn't realise that they had courses to enjoy. And certainly I hope they do. So, mate, great to chat. Love the conversation. Really appreciate your time. And for everyone listening, get out there and go and play parks, and say good day to Logan when you get out there. Thanks, Logan.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you enjoyed that one. I got a kick out of having a good yarn with Logan, and I think you could certainly hear that in the conversation. Logan's a great young bloke, and I'm really excited for him to take his first post as superintendent at a place like Parks in the Central West and regional New South Wales. Fantastic to see. Great to see another new person, a new young person taking on the reins of their own golf course. And I think it puts them in good stead at Parks Golf Club, certainly to have someone as energetic as Logan to take hold of the course there and drive it into a new era for the club, and also with the possible new works that are coming along with that bypass around the town there, with some changes coming to the golf course. So thanks again to Logan. It was really good to hear his story, and really good to hear a lot about Parks Golf Club as well, and what goes on out there. It's a wonderful part of the world, and like I reiterated that many times during the conversation, I hope you get the chance and take the opportunity to get out to Parks and visit. So many wonderful parts out in the Central West to visit and enjoy. And playing golf at parks is certainly one of them, and one that I'm looking forward to doing very soon myself now that I've heard a lot about it. Really excited. Going to have some links in the show notes, guys, of Parks Golf Club and the like, so have a look down there. There'll be other bits and pieces that I'll always link into things that were mentioned. So have a look at the show notes, and please like, share, subscribe. As always, I really do appreciate you getting on board as we continue with Australian Turf Analysis Keeper of the Greens, and you never know where we're going to turn up next or what state we'll be in or who we're going to talk to. So stay tuned. We'll come back in another fortnight with a new segment of Keeper of the Greens. But I thank you for your time again listening, and like I say, I appreciate all the kind messages and comments about the segment and all your support as well, and appreciate it and love having you guys on the podcast listening. And that's a wrap for the first episode of Australian Turf Analysis Keeper of the Greens for 2022. And please make sure you get out there and have a look at the website of AustralianTurfAnalysis.com to support the sponsor of this segment. You hit 'em clean, we'll keep 'em green, as I do always say. Enjoy your golf, and I'll catch up with you next week.